Hey guys, welcome back to the True North podcast. We are so thankful that you keep coming back and partnering with us in this journey of just discovering more about God. This week's podcast, I actually have my wife as a guest, along with Ryan and his wife, Meg. Meg actually works for us at True North. She is our office administrator. And a couple of years ago, they started something really special called Sacred Journey. And Sacred Journey is actually a women's version of what True North is doing. And so at True North, we do Basecamp and we do The Ascent, and we have a couple beyond that. But these ladies at Sacred Journey have started doing a captivating core, which is the women's version of Basecamp taught by Stacey Eldridge. They use the videos. They have live responders come up and respond to that. And then they also have the advanced camp, and they call that Captivating Advanced. That is the same experience as our Ascent weekend. And once again, taught by John and Stacey Eldridge. They go through the videos, they do the same practices that we do at the Ascent. We have so many men that say, hey, I just experienced the Ascent. It was groundbreaking for me. Is there anything like that for my wife? And the answer for years was no. There's no one doing that. But these ladies at Sacred Journey have stepped in to do that. And so to find out more about them, their website is sacredjourneyministry.org. That's where you'll go to. It is actually linked on our website as well underneath more resources. If you can't find it, it's there. You can click to it, and all the information for their future events is right there. And so if you have a wife or a loved one that's a lady that needs to experience the type of experience you've had through Basecamp or Ascent, this is absolutely the right next step for them. And I can promise you that we're pretty fond of these ladies as well. So join us this week as we kind of dive into the story of what Sacred Journey is all about. And once again, we thank you for joining us. Welcome back to the True North podcast. This week we have some wonderful women that are very near and dear to Ryan and myself. Miss Jessica McKenzie, my bride of almost 10 years.
It's true.
And Meg Moore, who is actually employed by True North. She has been working with us since, April of last year?
Yes.
Yeah. Office administrator. She gets all the task work done that Ryan and I are not very good at.
Yeah.
She is with the P's and Q's, and she knocks it all out. And then we've got Ryan Moore, of course, on the podcast. So welcome, ladies. Glad to have y'all here. So, Jess, you're not a stranger to the podcast.
That's true.
You've been on a couple times, but this is your first video podcast.
Yeah, that's probably why I feel different this time.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're a natural.
We'll see.
So the reason we have you guys on the podcast today is because you have been doing something very special for a few years now that we wanted to highlight and let the men in our audience know about, and the women, of course, in our audience know about. And so that is Sacred Journey. And so that is a ministry that you both stepped into together with a team of other ladies as well.
Yes.
But I'd love to just walk through that journey with you guys to share just how special it is and what God's doing. And so, Jess, you want to start with kind of the beginning of it all?
Yeah, I think when you say Sacred Journey, my stomach kind of does a flip a little bit. And before we got started today, I was just trying to unpack, why do I feel nervous? Even before coming here today, why do I feel like this isn't typically something that would make me feel uncomfortable? And I think honestly, it's because this is so much bigger than me. I am honored and blessed to be chosen to be a part of it, but God's doing something incredible. And I'm glad he picked us to be one of, two of the people that got to spearhead something. But it really is a significant move of God that was really unexpected. And I think we're just now seeing the beginning of what it's going to be.
Yeah.
For
And
sure.
so this kind of kicked off in, was it 2020?
Yeah, I think early 2021, just to give a little bit of context, I think I started feeling like that there was more. Reading Walking with God by John Eldridge and some other things, being exposed to their teaching, just unveiled a lot to me that I had no idea there was so much more of God available to me as a follower of Jesus, like conversational intimacy with God and an invitation to be healed. Like I didn't know that was even a thing. And so I think around early 21, I just started to desire more of that and just kind of blindly seeking how to find more of it, but like written for my heart. Um yeah, and so I think I just felt challenged to keep digging, but that was like a private journey for me. But in the process, I think other people were beginning to hear a
Mhm.
similar call to action that I was a little bit resistant to for a while.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meg, how did this idea of sacred journey land with you?
Well, I think for me it was not the idea. It was when I heard Jess speak about it, I something it started a stirring in me, and so I felt like I was going to be a part of it
Yeah.
in some way I knew. Even before maybe the official invite. I knew that God was calling me into that and inviting me into that with him. I think with me it started around the same time as well.
Mhm.
Where I just felt like I was being called into a deeper union with God. And I remember John speaking about that at the conference that we attended, is just having a closer union with him and that desire and what that looks like. And so that created a stirring in me that I knew that could only come with creating more space.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what that looked like then, but I feel like that was the beginning for
Yeah.
me.
And I think both of our lives were pretty maxed out. Like
Yes.
our plates were full. We were kind of set in the
Hmm.
direction we were going and what we were doing. And had we continued on that route, there wouldn't have been space to create space. Like you said, there was no
Yes.
room in our lives to create something new.
Hmm.
And so I think what I saw in Meg's life and several of the other ladies who started this with us is that God started clearing things out of our lives
He
to make
did.
room very strategically and very consistently across the board for all those people.
Yes.
And we had been on a staff retreat in September of 21, and this idea had been stirring already. Other people that are part of True North had been coming to me saying, "Man, I really feel like you're supposed to be a part of this." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a great idea. Probably the wrong person, but like I'm on board to come. Like I'd love to see it." Um, but an advanced retreat for women based off of the captivating content hadn't been offered in our area. And
Mhm.
it's not anything I'd ever been exposed to. I had heard some of the messages of that entry level retreat, just the idea of it, and some of the language from Basecamp, but not anything advanced. And
Mhm.
so when we went on that staff retreat, James essentially threw me under the bus and said, "Here's something I feel like God's been putting on Jess's heart. And she may not be ready to tell you, but this is what we believe God's calling her to do."
Mhm.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, because from our end, even we as True North, for context, for if you don't know, we have our entry level camp, which is base camp. And then we promote. You probably heard us promote this all the time if you haven't been, but another retreat called The Ascent that is the next level up, and we've had that for many years now. And men are just usually pretty blown away by that experience, and it's deeply impactful. I know it was huge for me, and through the years, even I, as just one of the leaders of True North, would hear men would come to me and say, "Man, do they have something like this for the women?" And I'd be like, "No, they do. They have the entry level stuff, but
mhm.
none of this that I'm hearing about." And so even my internal dialogue was like, "Man, like women need this too. Like to have like our men are going and learning about discerning God's voice." And walking with Him
Mhm.
daily, and taking all of our questions to Him. Oh, so why are our wives not able to? And of course, I am one of the biggest fans in the world of you, Jess, and I thought my wife can do this. Like she can handle this. She is
Hmm.
equipped, called, special, gifted, all the things. And so I think I was pushing you a little bit from behind the scenes
Yes.
here and there. And at that retreat you mentioned, our staff retreat,
Mhm.
was whenever I just boldly said it, like, you need to do this. And
Yeah.
that kind of stirred from there.
And that was a moment of responding to a whisper
Hmm.
because Meg sat at that table and we had several other really special people in our lives who got called in and invited to be a part of it too. But I think, Meg, you can answer this better. But what whisper had you been hearing before that conversation at the table? And then how did that prompting kind of help you take a step forward?
I think I didn't realize really what God was going to do with that until I sat at that table. I knew He had been doing a lot of cleaning up in my life
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of stripping. I feel like I had been through a couple years of a stripping process, like losing our home, community, family. There was just a lot of things happening in our lives to create margin that I was really not happy about at
Mm-hmm.
the time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we can become discontent with that. But I feel like through that discontentment, a lot of clarity came sitting around that table. It's like, yeah, it just hit me. I
Yeah.
knew at that moment that all of that God had been leading us through
Mm-hmm.
was for such a time as this.
Yeah.
Right. It all came together so beautifully. It was like an aha moment, I think, for me.
Yeah. Grief and sacrifice. And for
Yes.
me, fear and doubt.
Yes.
Like, I have a full-time ministry and several kids and, a lot of things that I feel responsible for. And my plate is full.
Right.
But it did become really clear that maybe the reason I'm afraid of this is because it is bigger than I am. And because if it's worth it, it might be difficult. And the same
Yes.
for you, the grief and loss leading up to that point. Like, this journey toward ministry isn't typically just a breeze. And so that challenge did feel to me like a good indication that maybe we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
So,
And it seems like there were several other ladies. I mean, you had Amy Dixon, Wendy Gibson, Sherry Allen,
Yeah.
and then Abby Stoner. And all four of those ladies had similar experiences of like God just creating margin
Yeah.
in their lives to join this as well. And so I can kind of speak to this because at this point it's like, okay, like let's get started, right?
Right.
Like, what do we do?
Yeah.
And so you start planning. I reach out to Wild at Heart Ministries, which I know we've thanked them on the podcast before, but like, thank you, Wild at Heart Ministries,
Yeah.
for all the free resources that you give. I mean, our ministry is just we're bringing this to Oklahoma because of what Wild at Heart Ministry is doing. And so we reach out to them like, hey, could we get the advanced women's retreat copy? They send us a DVD set that we're able to
Yeah.
export and get going, and then talk about the journey from there to start the ministry and all that.
Yeah, when you were talking about how you guys offer the advanced and like the experience and the value it brings, and that people are saying like, is there more? Like, what about the women? Is there something for them? We were craving something, but I don't even think we knew what we were missing out on. We didn't
Right.
have a tangible experience to say, oh, I want that. It was just, we know there's something that you're getting to learn and experience that we're not, and we want more of God.
Yeah.
And so when we got that, content from the Wild at Heart team, we just took those DVDs and some movie clips and we got an Airbnb and we sat on a couch together, this group. And also Barbara and Lori were a part of that group. And we all just sat together and we went through that content and we were blown away. I think
Yes.
we got a very small taste of what we had been missing that God was inviting us into. And I think the biggest piece was being able to sit in a room together and be in prayer for one another and hear the voice of God for someone else. Like, my mess inside my mind isn't in the way of what I'm asking God. It's easier for me to hear on behalf of Meg. And so just getting to learn a new skill that God offers us so freely that we could sit in conversation. And what that did for my faith, that, okay, God actually speaks to me. Like, this is alive and real. Everyone has to know. Like, there are people
Yes.
in my life that have no idea that this is available to them. And so that was the moment I think things shifted from me feeling afraid and unsure to just on fire.
Yeah.
Like, this has to be available to people. What can we do? And it was quick. We talked about that conversation at the table was September of 21 when the idea came about, and our retreat was November of 22. And we were ready to roll.
Your first retreat.
You couldn't slow us down.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were so excited.
Because y'all did the lake house thing that spring, right?
Yeah.
So spring of
March
20,
of 22.
22. Yeah.
I remember sitting around with an amazing group of women, just all sitting together and thinking, everybody has to experience this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is so enriching. Like, so it just, my goodness, everybody needs to experience it.
Yeah.
It's hard to put into words because
Yeah.
you want everyone to be drawn into that,
Yeah.
to know that it's available.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what drove my passion. It's like, we have to share this.
Yeah.
Well, and I know, Meg, that you guys practice listening prayer often. I know of stories of you, the two of you, leading your family through listening prayer before
Yes.
Sacred Journey was ever an idea, right? And
Mhm.
so you having some prior experience with it, what for that first time of y'all going to the lake house and experiencing that as a small group, what stood
Right.
out to you personally in that content and what you learned and experienced?
Well, so it goes back further than that, probably, is watching the years of Ryan stepping into that role
Mm-hmm.
and going to the Ascent and learning the listening prayer and then getting to hear him talk about it and the impact that it had on so many lives of men and just the things they heard
Yeah.
for each other,
Yeah.
like straight from the voice of God, right?
Yeah.
And then him showing his family how God can speak to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's amazing.
Yeah.
So through his leadership and his direction leading us into doing that, and then teaching our kids at a young age, you can ask God and you can hear his voice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
And so going into that first experience with the ladies, there's always a little bit of pressure and a little bit of like, I hope this works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's so silly. Of course,
Yeah.
God wants to
We've
speak
been doing
to
it for
us.
how many years, and we still have those. I hope this works.
hope this works.
We've only done the Ascent
Yeah.
25 times now, probably,
Yeah.
or
You're like,
20
okay,
times.
God,
And
we need you to show
Please-
up this time.
Please speak to somebody about something.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
But no, of course, he's always speaking to
Yeah.
us. It's if we will listen.
yeah.
Right. And so really, it's not sitting there thinking, okay, talk to me, God, talk to me, God. I think it's really sitting there saying, I want to learn how to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's fine tuning that and then sitting in the quiet sometimes and listening and waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it was an amazing experience. It's hard to put into words. That first excitement of look what he told me. Look what he told me for you, or look what he has for you. Yeah, I'll always remember that.
Yeah. One other name I forgot to mention was Misty Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
Was with you guys too.
Yeah.
So just wanted to honor her. So you have that first kind of team retreat.
Mhm.
Remind me, I've actually forgotten. Did you guys go and get your 501c3 before your first retreat, official retreat?
Yeah, so that was the role that Misty played that was pivotal,
Yeah.
was creating space where people could give to, people,
Mm-hmm.
could purchase their registration ticket, that we were protected, they were protected. And so she established our 501c3. And that was in between our leadership retreat and then the one
Yeah.
that we opened up by invitation in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was getting the 501c3 like for you guys? I remember Brad Montgomery's told the story, I think on the podcast before, of like, he's all
Yeah.
excited and he goes up to
Yeah.
the courthouse or whatever. And the person just like, he's ready to celebrate. And the person stamping the thing is just like, whatever,
Yes. Well, I had the privilege of going up there
Yeah.
and getting it. And I was all excited. And I want everybody to be excited
Yeah.
too. Like, I'm taking a picture with the certificate outside of the
Yeah.
building, and I took the kids with me and they're thrilled.
Yeah.
I mean, they were excited for me. So that was good. But the person at the counter, they just listened up.
Did
And they're
not
like,
care.
here you go. Like,
Yeah.
good for you.
Brad,
I think I was somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I think I knew I was being obedient and I knew it was the right thing. But I don't know that there was any tangible doubt or like lie that I was believing about, my part in it. But I just felt a little bit of reservation about like, is God going to show up? Is this going to work? Like, are we supposed to do this? Am I the right person to be? Why am I the one out front? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I remember even on the day that Meg sent an adorable picture to our group, she's like, we got the thing, and I'm like, oh God, we're doing this.
Mhm.
Oh no.
The commitment to follow through. I was
Mhm.
like, oh man, this is official.
Mhm.
Like we're going to do this.
Mhm.
And I think that's been a healthy level of, this is a big deal. I think that healthy level of like in the pit of my stomach from the very first day until today, like I really take seriously what God's invited us to lead. And so, yeah, I think just creating that space, it just says so much about the value of it and how important it is to push through all of that to make sure that it's offered to people.
Hmm.
Yeah. So let's talk about the first retreat, and maybe we can kind of go into just all of these advanced retreats that you've hosted so far,
Mhm.
and share some stories of impact and what you guys have seen and how God's grown you guys through that.
Yeah. I think one important decision that we made early on was to keep it small. And I think a part of it was probably me being conservative. And I thought the fewer number of people that come, we have a bigger like margin for error. We will make mistakes. We don't know what we're doing. We're going to be figuring this out, like building the plane while it's in the air. And so if we invite people that know us and trust us, they'll have lots of grace and the margin for error will be great. But it was incredible.
Hmm.
I remember standing at the back of the room and being in worship and looking at all of these women just pouring their hearts out to God and just being so overwhelmed of like, why do I get to stand here? Like, why are you allowing me to witness what's happening here? And not just be a participant in the room, which is already an honor, but to be trusted to lead them somewhere still overwhelms me. And I think that was the opening session of worship. And I thought, oh man, I have no idea what God's prepared to do. I think my mind had been so focused on logistics and getting it right. I wanted to come through and do a good job. I wanted to honor Wild at Heart, and I wanted to honor our leadership team and the women that gave money and made sacrifices to be there that I hadn't even given space to think about what God stood to do over those 3.5 days. And I think just the realization that women came not to experience a retreat, but to experience Him. And we were getting to steward some significant moments for them. Still, every time we're standing in that room and they begin to worship, it just wrecks me. Um, and I think the intimate setting was God's plan. Having 40 or fewer
Mhm.
women attending, including our team, I
Hmm.
think one thing I was really proud of is that we got the opportunity to know every person's name, to hear a little bit of their story over the weekend, to really get to know the people that were there, to hear what happened for you during listening prayer. Like, where did God show up for you? And that face to face time with them helped me to feel like we honored what God called us to do. And
Yeah.
that still, I hope, continues to be our story that every person who leaves, we know your name and we know your face and we know where God showed up.
Hmm. I think for me, one of the things about having the intimacy too of fewer numbers maybe is that every woman feels seen,
Hmm.
because I think it's easy to hide in the background
Yeah.
sometimes. Think you're the only one going through hard times, or that you're the only mess in the room. And I think it's lies that can be believed. But I think for me is I want every single woman to feel loved and seen. And I think that that's what God did for them
Yeah.
on those weekends.
Mhm.
And I think that too, it's truly important to know that I think too, going into it, I thought I had to be perfect and know how to do things and have it all together, right?
Hmm.
And I think one of the most beautiful things God has shown me, maybe others on our team, is that He is also healing us through the journey as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Mhm.
So even though these women come and they look to us and they're like, okay, what do we do next, or when are we going to do this? And I'm thinking, um, we're doing this with them.
Hmm.
We're walking alongside them. We're walking through deeper healing with them.
Yeah.
We're learning more about ourselves, more about our identity in Christ. And so I think it's truly awesome. I just hope that God continues to show us that, to stay
Yeah.
humble, to just know that
Yeah.
no one has arrived, no one's there, right?
Yeah.
And I think so with each retreat that we have done, He has shown up in a huge way
Mm.
for
Yeah.
every single woman. Not one woman was left
Untouched.
untouched.
Yeah, and I think that is the character of our team. Like, I believe that's why God handpicked every woman who's a
Mhm.
part of our leadership team and the volunteers that are starting to be a part of what we're doing, is that we are humbly in process with you. Like, I'm not asking
Mhm.
anyone to go somewhere that I'm not in the midst of myself. And so I think that there is just a level of connectedness that happens in the room from the people that are attending to our team, is that we're presenting ourselves also as just women who are being like still in the process of knowing God and being healed and transformed, and we're with you. And so I think that that is a really unique opportunity, that if this is scary for you, or if you're on the other end of the spectrum and you are like starving and excited for more, you're going to be met with that
Yes.
personal connection sitting there.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think the content is amazing. I'm still hearing things and learning things in the content that we show from Stacey Eldridge and her team that is shifting the way I view God. It's changing my perspective of how I live my life every day. But the money is the quiet time. Like the
Yes.
impact point is the time you spend quiet with God and listening for his voice, whether that's reflecting on questions from the teaching or in listening prayer.
Mhm.
And if I had to say, like, there's a selling point, it's how often do you get to get alone with God? That's not, you had to lock 3 doors in your house to find a quiet space to get away for 5 minutes. Like,
Yes.
it's a significant amount of time that creates a space where we can hear.
Yeah, that's so good. And for any listeners like that is hearing this, and we're talking a lot about listening to God and listening
Mhm.
prayer, we've talked about it a lot on this podcast, and we're only going to be talking about it more. I know that following the footsteps of Wild at Heart and what they're doing, they're really stepping into it this year. Our Frontier event, which will, by the time this podcast comes out, will actually be, I think, a week in 1 week. So the February Frontier. Uh, if you want to find out more about listening prayer, go to that one, because it's going to be an Eldridge teaching
Mhm.
that is actually derived from this message that we're talking about right now, and about the importance of listening prayer and walking with God and going to Him for all of our questions. And so, with that in mind, we have this listening prayer session. The Ascent does it.
Mhm.
You guys do it at Sacred Journey. It's a scary I remember the first time at my Ascent sitting there, and I believe it was Trey was leading that Ascent, and he was telling us, this is what we're about to do. And I mean, I'm like, oh crap,
Mhm.
like holy moly. And so you're going into a room with a few trusted people and just sharing your story and listening to God about what he has to say about the other person. Can you guys think of any crazy, weird, cool,
Mhm.
beautiful things that God has said and done in those times, whether
Yeah.
you were in the group or maybe it's something you heard about in your retreats?
Mhm. Yeah, I can think of a couple. Maybe we can take turns, Meg.
Mhm.
The one that brings me the most joy, because it's so humbling and such a good reminder that God moves through everyone and unexpected ways, was the last advanced retreat we had at Circle M. I was in a room with girls who were like in their early 20s. They're my kids' age. And I was excited to share something with them where I thought, like, I'm further down the road. Like, I've had a little practice. I'm 20 years older than you. Like, this will be fun for me to share with them. And I came like not expecting to receive anything. I was excited to just be there and walk them through their own experience. And God shocked me. These beautiful young girls heard so clearly from God. We had gone through every person in the room, and I was just the guide. And at the end, one of the girls said, "Are you like off limits, or can you go?" And I said, "Yeah, if you feel like, we need to spend some time and like maybe God has something to offer me, I'm totally open." And so I was expecting nothing. And God's voice was so crystal clear. The things that they felt God was speaking to them were spot on for me, and kind of breathtaking, like kind of knocked the air out of me, because it was like another challenge of God calling me into something different. And I'm like, okay, it's unexpected. And I think his voice doesn't discriminate. Like, he will choose the willing. And so that moment for me personally was very surprising and a good reminder. Yeah.
Yeah. So probably one of my favorite ones was during the same camp. It was during a listening prayer for a woman, and um, I got the image of a little girl, probably 3, in a yellow dress, big ruffles, really big poofy twirly dress, and she was just twirling and dancing as if there were no worries, just carefree. And I said, okay, this might be weird. I see a little girl with twirling and a little fluffy yellow dress. And one woman's like, I had a yellow dress when I was a little girl. And she said, I always wanted to twirl and feel pretty. But she said there was no one ever to tell her that she felt pretty.
Mm.
And so I said, well, God is telling me that he wants you to know he's always seen you and that he loves you. And so that's probably one of the most impactful for me.
Mm.
And I think every time God gives you a word for someone else, it's also strengthening your faith and deepening that too. And so it really is humbling, I think, each time. And then, of course, I did take a turn too.
Yeah.
Because they're all like, oh, you got to go too.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh. And so as they prayed over me, they saw, they pretty much described our future home and space that we would live in and our land. And they said that they saw 4 large guardian angels at each corner of our property, protecting us with their wings spread around us. And so just wow, right? The peace that you can feel, imagine moving forward. I mean, we didn't even have our land then. And so for somebody to describe the place that we would be able to live one day was pretty incredible.
That's awesome.
I feel like the most impactful story that was just shocking to me, I want to share, like, still in confidence of the person, but the details are really specific. But the VRBO that we're using for our advanced retreat right now is owned by a family that has been in ministry for decades. They're the sweetest people. Their home is prayed over. Like, this is their joy to be able to offer this to people. And so shortly before we showed up for our very first advanced retreat at this VRBO, they had been given a teepee from a friend out of state. It was like out of commission. They said, hey, could you guys use this in any way? And they thought, yeah, let's put it at the VRBO. This will be a really fun addition. So they had just put that out right before we had arrived. So weeks prior to that camp taking place, one of the girls in our life group had said, I just keep getting this vision of there being a prayer tent, like an outdoor prayer tent. And I said, hey, if you're going to be a part of the prayer team, listen to God, run with it. Let me know what he's telling you, and we'll see if we can make it happen. So she partnered with Sherry, who leads our prayer team, and they ideated, and they like bought a white tent and all these cute things to put inside to create a space where women could go and be alone and pray. So that's all taking place beforehand. We pull up to the VRBO, get out of the car, and there is a white tent, this teepee in the backyard. And so we're already in shock. So I call Amy and I said, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what I'm looking at. There is a prayer tent in the backyard of this place. I think your vision was of something that's already here. So she pulls in, blown away, like God had given her a vision and it was already there. So she's already excited that she's hearing from him. And then we get into the retreat, and I'm in a room with a group of ladies, and we get into listening prayer. And one of the women in my group shares some pretty traumatic history from her childhood that all took place in a teepee on an Indian reservation. And she said that when she pulled up that day, she knew she's not gonna be able to stay. She's like, this is too much. Like, this is so unexpected and so triggering to childhood trauma. And so she said she turned to her friend and was like, I don't think I can do this. I think I have to go. And they said, that's all right. Just stay the night. You can pack up your stuff in the morning and head home. So she woke up the next morning and said that she didn't want those memories to define her future. And so she was going to try to walk out there and just look inside. And when she did, she walked inside and just felt the presence of God was overwhelming, that this teepee that had held so much trauma for her had been set up to be a holy space for people to come and experience God in prayer. And he had some specific things that he spoke to her that healed some places from that story. And she shared that in our listening prayer. And so just the ways that God goes before us, and then sitting in that space, all we have to do is create the moment and listen and learn to hear.
Yes.
He's already speaking. And so
speaking.
it's just incredible to see what he did, all of the many steps that he took for our prayer team, for this woman, to bring together a moment that healed something really deep in her.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It is amazing because we weren't even supposed to be at the Airbnb.
That's true.
We had another place lined out that fell through a few weeks before camp, and we did not know what to do.
Yeah.
And we just felt we're having camp.
Yeah.
Sight
We're
unseen, looks
having
good on
camp.
the internet. Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
So happened, one of our leaders happened upon the
Yeah.
Airbnb, and we went
Yeah.
and had no idea.
God
Had
knew
no
exactly.
idea. God knew.
Yeah.
God knew. He went
Yeah.
to prepare a place for these women, every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can you guys put words around what is the fruit of an experience like the advanced retreat? I know we've already, I mean, people have already heard the stories
Yeah.
that you've shared and the heart, but I think it'd be good to maybe put words to that.
I think something that feels really personal for me is that once you've experienced something like this, whether you knew the people in your room at retreat beforehand or you met them at retreat, you're never the same.
Mhm.
And Meg, you're
Yes.
saying like how I didn't expect to cry this much. Love that. Meg, you talked about still being on a journey with these women. We are still growing with you.
Mhm.
And that's my experience. Having been at retreats with Meg, God's still showing up and catching me off guard with an invitation to go into something that I'm not ready for. But he's so gentle and so kind. And it is an invitation. And there have been times at retreat where he's been like, hey, it's time that we look at this. And I'm like, oh God, like I'm leading this thing. I'm supposed to like have it all together. And he's like, that's
Yeah.
fine. But you're not going to be healthy until we go here. Like, are you ready? And
Mhm.
so even being able to go to Meg and just pour my heart out and say, hey, I feel like I'm supposed to process with you. This is what God's saying to me right now. When you share those types of experiences and when you hear on behalf of someone else, the relationships that are made at that retreat are deepened, like that's a concentrated experience with someone and you truly know them and understand who they are and how God sees them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think in the beginning, probably the first camp, second camp, it's easy to not want to go, actually, if I'm being honest, because oh, God's going to show up. He's going to meet me there. It might be
He's going
painful.
to disrupt you.
Might have to deal with
Yeah.
things.
Mhm.
Might have to step out of the chaos, right? Because sometimes we find comfort in the chaos
Mhm.
because it's distracting,
Mhm.
right? It's awful. It's awful though. But I feel like he draws us into these quiet moments and we have to take those because that's where he does the work. And so I feel like each camp, he's shown me another step of healing, another layer, even in some areas that we had already visited. I reminded him, we've already
We've
done
We not done
this.
this yet?
Yeah. Aren't we done? No.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
And most oftentimes it's times where he has shown me where I have been wrong, gently, of course. He has shown me, oh, here's where I need you to work, right? Here's what I need you to work on. Here's what we could do better next time. And so every single retreat, I dive into something deeper.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the most significant things
Yeah.
that we need to remember because yes, you've gone once, you've gone twice, you've gone 3 times, but I feel like each time there's another step.
Yeah.
There's more healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think confidence, like once you have believed that God does speak and he speaks to you and you start to acquire like you strengthen that muscle, you get some practice in
Mhm.
what does his voice sound like to me? Like what's the unique way that God speaks
Right.
to me? And you start to tune your ear and how to hear that, your confidence gets stronger and stronger. And so then it's no longer just a retreat experience where you're hearing for someone
Mhm.
else, or there's this like perfect setting where everything's
Mhm.
quiet and there's a specific question and you can throw something out and try it and maybe get it right or wrong. And there's really nothing to lose. But once you've strengthened that muscle and you take that back home, that now is a tool in your tool belt that you get to use every day of your life. You get to teach your kids. You get to, flex this
Yes.
in your own life. Like when there is something you're pursuing God for, or when he's pursuing you,
Mhm.
you now have the ability to go to him and to get guidance and to hear.
Yeah.
What's been y'all's experience like? So we're talking a lot about, it can be a little nerve wracking
Mhm.
going in
Yeah.
and like just anticipating God speaking. What kind of feedback have you gotten from people prior to the listening prayer exercise
Yeah.
as opposed to after?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because because I can share a little bit of how, what I hear from a lot of the guys, but I want to hear from you guys
Mm-hmm.
as far as like, how do ladies go into that? How do they feel?
I would say, and you would probably agree, that we're met with the same response from them that we felt in the beginning, absolute terror. Like, what am I supposed to do? What are we doing now? I mean, it's uncomfortable at first,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where they are just kind of, some of them are terrified.
Yeah.
But I feel like after they have had that experience, they crave that.
Mm-hmm.
Like they look forward to that the most, where that is precious
Mm-hmm.
to them. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I think people have this preconceived notion that it's this big, complex, like weird religious or spiritual thing. And they're like, I don't know if I believe this. Like, y'all can do the thing. I'll just listen. Or
Right.
I don't know if I'm equipped. I don't
Mhm.
know if I'm ready. I don't think I can. I don't have that gift. Like maybe you guys can hear from God like that. I don't think He works that way with me. It's not complicated.
Mm-hmm.
You are simply still and listening. And it's the same whether you're in that setting at retreat or you're sitting on your couch pursuing God for guidance or whatever, that it's really not complicated. All you have to do is practice. And it's like, can be as simple as, God, do you love me? Like that's always John's go-to is start with something you already know the answer to and
Mm-hmm.
ask and listen to see how you hear from him. And typically that confirmation comes pretty easily. And so I think people are hesitant, skeptical, uncomfortable, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit overwhelmed or shy. And then
Yeah.
after they're like, oh, that wasn't so hard after all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your experience in reading Walking with God?
Oh man.
I always love this story.
Yeah, I watched James experience a different part of God that I wasn't sure if I believed that was real. I'm very logical, practical. I've experienced a lot of loss and hardship in my life, and I've trained myself to not expect much. So I'm not disappointed much, and I'm fine operating in that way. And the experience that you were getting in your relationship with God, like as a brand new Christian, you didn't know to have those guardrails up for yourself to protect yourself in that way. And so you're just open and willing to learn whatever. You're just like flexible and along for the ride. And I did envy that a little bit, but I also didn't feel like that was very realistic. You read Walking with God. I think this is maybe in like 2018 or 19.
Yeah.
And you were so blown away by it. You had so much to talk about. There was so much excitement. You seemed like you had just unveiled something magical. And I was like, I want to read it, but just to get to know your heart better. I love seeing you so excited about something. And so the only reason I picked the book up was so that I could understand your heart.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really think I'd get anything out of it that would apply to
Mhm.
me. And I was okay with that. And I had it on Audible and I had a long commute. And I remember the very first day that I turned it on, and it was a Monday morning and I was driving to work. And my interpretation of what I heard was John Eldredge telling me, like, oh, God cares. God's invested in every part of your life. He, if you ask him what color socks to wear, God's going to tell you. And I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I was so mad because I felt like I was being misled into something that was just going to disappoint me. And I'm like, this is crazy. And so in my fury, I shut the book off and I came home and I'm like, this book is ridiculous. God doesn't care about what color socks I wear. He probably doesn't actually talk about socks, but that's what I heard. 1 week later, I thought, I'll give it one more chance. So I turned the book back on, and I remember exactly where I was at in the bend of Highway 152. And something just struck me that God has been there all along. Like, He hasn't been turning His face from me. Like, I haven't disqualified myself from being loved by Him. He does care. Like, He is a good Father, and He wants to be with me. That offering to be with us is who He is.
Mhm.
And it was just like all of a sudden this misbelief was broken and a door was open and I could just see clearly, like, this is truth. And I was crying so hard I had to pull over to the side of the road and just let it come. And I remember calling you and I was just so confused. Like, I'm scared to believe this because it feels too good to be true. Like, is this real? And I trusted your voice and I trusted your experience. And I wanted so desperately to believe that he had always been there and was willing to continue walking with me. And he wanted to just know me and that I was enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I learned. And I think that was the very beginning of not just believing in Jesus as my savior and that God is my father, the fundamentals of Christianity, but that God is with me. And what else does that mean? And that just opened a whole new world for me that I'd never even been taught.
Yeah. And you're already a pastor
I
at
was
this
already
point.
working for a church at that point for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And very much like willing and desiring to share people, with people what I knew about God and to learn. I was still such a student of ministry and of scripture, but I didn't know how much I didn't know about who God is and what that meant for me.
Yeah. I always love sharing that story.
Yeah.
It's so powerful because what we're doing here with the advanced, with Sacred Journey and with the Ascent is that's the heart of it right there.
Yeah.
Like our Father just wants to be with us and speak to us and guide us, and
Yeah.
everything we're doing is stripping away all the distractions to get to that. And so this message of what we're doing, what you guys are doing, what we get to do is that's the core.
Yeah. I
It's-
think if I could zoom out to the 30,000-foot view of what does captivating teach you? What is Sacred Journey about? It's that I encounter women in my life daily, weekly, who have no idea. That moment I experienced in the car of listening to Walking with God when my eyes were opened and I experienced something new that has changed my life. And everyone around me, they have no idea. No one's ever told them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I could live the rest of my life without dedicating it to that cause.
Yeah.
If they don't know, how can they possibly experience him in that way? And that's where I feel like Sacred Journey and that passion collided. Was this is the avenue, one way to get this message in front of women of he is after you. He is pursuing your heart like crazy. And he's always been there. And like, he's here right now. Like he wants to speak to you right now. And the excitement behind that, I think, is enough to help overcome all those hurdles, the discomfort and the fear and all those things. Like, if this is true, what might this do for the rest of my life?
Well, it changes your entire perspective. Like walking with God was my first experience of hearing from God as well.
Yeah.
Driving down the turnpike, pulling over, completely sobbing, called Meg. Similar story. Like, is this real? Like, and she's on the other line. Are like,
I
are
had no
you
idea what he was
are
talking
you
about. I couldn't
okay?
even understand anything.
Are
he
you
was
okay
saying.
right now?
I'm not fine.
I was
which
just
weird.
in.
I was like, what is happening?
I cry way more now than I did way back then. But
It's like, I don't know what's happening.
so like it was very out of character for me. But probably the biggest thing and kind of where I was leading with that question is that so many people go into that listening prayer probably on a subconscious level hoping that they do hear from God, but also equally as fearful that they're not gonna like what they hear, right? And I think so many times our perspective on who God is gets muddled and twisted through the filter of our experiences, and then with our own earthly fathers and all the things that life is. But the fact of the matter is, like, God is so kind and gentle and loving, even on the occasion that it's a corrective word or a prompting to change directions in something. It is so different from what we experience from, say, our earthly father, right? So often. And so that would be my encouragement, like, because I'm sitting here thinking like this probably is not a good sales pitch on one hand to like, hey, come experience God in this way.
Get your life
Come get
wrecked.
wrecked.
But just
wrecked.
it's terrifying and horrible and beautiful and like, but I mean, seriously, it is, it's the difference. Like, where would life be? Like, I don't think I would still be a Christian had I not gotten over the hump of moving all the knowledge I had from growing up in the church to experiencing him. Like, that's why so many people are walking away because this is the piece they're missing. Like, they walk away thinking
Mhm.
there has to be more.
I try
There has to be
like
more than this. There has to be more than,
Mhm.
serving people and being a good person and doing all the right things. And there is.
I
Like,
can tell you
there
without a
is.
doubt, if I
Yes.
hadn't experienced him, God will move time, space, whatever. But that moment I had in listening to Walking with God and all he's done since, I would have become really good at what I do. I would have been great at performing. I would have brought the best. I would have done great. I would have scored well. I would have brought an excellent performance to all that I did. And it would have been hollow and empty.
Mhm.
And all of the stuff that stays hidden out of fear or pain or you're unaware, all of the stuff that changes us that we live out of unknowingly would have still been stuck inside. And at some point, that doesn't work any longer. The performance doesn't work. Whatever you're bringing to people is shallow and they're hungry for deeper. At some point, I would have reached an end of my capability to bring the gospel to people
Mhm.
unless I had been changed by it.
Yeah.
Mm. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really good, I think this is a good time to transition to where God's taking, y'all have already taken steps in the direction you're going now for Sacred
Right.
Journey.
Mhm.
So let's fill people in on that, and where God's moving.
Yeah. So we kind of did things backward.
We
There-
did.
Very backward.
We did.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's
It
unconventional.
was God's plan.
Hmm.
There wasn't an
Mhm.
offering for an advanced level retreat in this content.
Mhm.
And so that's what we said yes to. That was the need. That was the call. We said yes. That's where we started. And then after a while, I think we all were hearing the same thing, feeling the same prompting. But the language that I believe I heard from God was that you have to widen the pipeline. More people, in order to get to the advanced retreat, have to start at square one. So
Mhm.
you need to offer square one.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
our team kind of came together and thought, how do we get more people? The advance is our passion, and we believe that that
Yes.
is like the significant thing that helps propel you forward. But if you don't have the fundamental understanding, the language
Mhm.
that we use, the
Mhm.
experience, like what does it even look like to go to a base camp or a captivating retreat? So starting at the beginning invites people in to then eventually get to the advance. And so we thought, okay, we widened the pipeline. So after we had had a
Mhm.
couple of advanced retreats, then we
Yes.
started at square one. And
Yes.
so
Well, Meg, talk about, you just said this yesterday, I think. You just talked about how wild it was that Stacey Eldridge, the same weekend that you guys felt the
Mhm.
pull to
Yes.
start the captivating core, the entry level message,
Yes.
Stacey Eldridge announces that they're no longer doing American retreats. They're focusing all
Mhm.
their efforts overseas.
yeah.
And so
Mhm.
there is no avenue to go through step one.
Yes, it was miraculous
Yeah.
at our leader getaway that we
Yeah.
had planned to kind of spend time together as leaders and pray. And that same weekend, we were all together. There was an
Yeah.
announcement made that there would no longer be a core offered in the United States, that they were, the Eldridges were feeling called to
Hmm.
move overseas.
Mhm.
And so at that moment, we all looked at each other like, oh no,
This is our
This is
answer.
it.
Mhm.
It was like extra confirmation
Yeah.
that this is the direction that God wanted us to move in. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So they established video teaching offering
Yeah.
what they call Captivating Core, where anyone can just
Mhm.
plop
Yeah.
this on their TV. It's got the videos
Yeah.
embedded. You could just plug and
Yes.
play.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
we said, okay, this is our invitation. We take that content and we widen the pipeline. We create
Mhm.
space where people can
Mhm.
come and experience this for the very first time.
Mhm. And I want to
Yes.
honor, obviously, to bring clarity, like captivating cores are happening all over America.
Yes.
And it's individuals that are taking it and going out to cabins and
Mhm.
hosting a
Yes,
group of
anywhere.
women and taking them through it. But as far as, I think whenever we say it, like what the offering is, it's to our circles, right? Like True
Mhm.
North has a gigantic influence, and you guys have a gigantic influence amongst that. You're known for the prestige that you're
Oh
married
my
to,
gosh.
of course.
Of course.
It
The
had to come out
royalty
at
of
some
True
point.
North.
Right.
Yes.
It's great. Oh no, we're not going there.
No.
Yeah, we don't need a Trump
Yeah.
But you're right.
impersonation.
People are doing
Yes.
this in their living
Yeah.
rooms.
Anywhere.
But there
Everywhere.
wasn't a retreat experience where you get away, someone cooks for you, someone
Yes.
puts on the content and teaches you and shares stories. And so, yeah, we were on retreat when that announcement was made, and we were like, okay, we definitely heard, right? Like, this is our next call
Yes.
to action.
Mhm.
And so we just hosted our first Captivating Core retreat, and holy cow,
Was that in November?
November.
I don't even know what month it is right now. It's January.
It was in November.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, like inviting a small number of people,
Mhm.
building community, getting to know one another, women leave feeling seen and known. We celebrated salvation and baptisms
Yes.
and people hearing this content for the very first time, like a brand new message to them. Yeah. It
Mhm.
was incredible.
Yes.
A lot of young
That's
ladies
beautiful.
too.
Yes.
We did have strategic invites to women that were around 17 to 20.
Mhm.
And I think our passion is, man, if someone had told me and helped me before I was in my 30s, I wouldn't be such a mess.
Absolutely. We
Like,
could-
how do we get
yes,
ahead
we
of the
could.
curve and
That's such a
inform
common
them?
theme with the guys too. It's
Yeah.
like, it's like, man, if I had it at your age, if
Yeah.
anybody under the age of 25
Yeah.
comes, they probably hear that phrase
Yeah.
all weekend. And by the end, they're like,
know.
oh my gosh, I get it. I'm young, but
Yeah.
seriously, like I can't imagine if I heard it in high school or,
Yeah.
18, 19, what a difference it would have made.
You
Yeah.
probably would have just thought everybody was being dramatic.
Yeah.
That won't be me.
Yeah.
I won't have wounds.
You're probably right. I probably wouldn't
I'm
have
not
been
going to
ready.
mess up.
I probably wouldn't have been ready for the message then anyway. It had just went right over my head.
We probably need to have a podcast where we invite 3 18-year-olds on and just see
Yeah.
what their experience was like.
Yeah.
I've got a
That would be-
handful.
Yeah.
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 That would be exciting.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's really sweet how God shows up for you.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think
Yeah.
the experience I have with God is appropriate for who I am at the young age of 41. But the way he shows up for these 17-year-olds
Yes.
was specific to who they are in a way that they can understand and relate to him.
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
was their experience. And you talked about feedback earlier, and we take feedback cards all of our retreats. We sincerely know we can always get better, and we care
Yes.
about their experience. And it's like 5 out of 5. The food is great. The retreat center is beautiful. God showed up. We love the leadership team.
Yes.
Like,
Oh.
this isn't about us. Like, God
Mhm.
is using us to do something incredible.
Mhm.
But the feedback is like solid. It's been like God continues
Yes.
to just shock us at
It's
every turn.
priceless. It really is. It's so precious
Yeah.
to see. And you are so excited when God reveals something to you. But I was able to take my daughter to this last retreat. So sitting side by side with her and sharing in that and pulling her into some of the things I've been able to do.
Mhm.
Wow. It was very sweet.
Yeah.
And seeing God show up for her is sometimes it's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
It's something you always pray for,
Mhm.
that your
Yeah.
children can see God like he has shown himself to you.
Yeah.
And so for him to do that it's precious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
our oldest daughter, Jen, has been coming and running
Mhm.
tech for us. She's like, yeah, I can click a button, which I don't know if she knows what a big deal it is,
Yeah.
but
Yes,
it's
we
like
couldn't
a
do
piece of
without
cake
her.
for her. She's hilarious. She brings the gummy clusters,
Yes.
nerds candy, and
Yeah.
she turns on the hype music and celebrates birthdays.
Yes.
She definitely brings a spark of joy, but
Mhm.
she also has encountered God in some crazy ways, like
Mhm.
going back into deep childhood stuff, her future,
Yes.
showing up for her. And like you said, being a mom and sitting there watching God reach your child feels like, okay, we're going to be all right.
Mhm.
My messy past doesn't have to change the future of my children. Like the God I know today
Mhm.
will be
Yeah.
the God that they meet today. And yeah, it's been
Yes.
incredible to watch the next generation coming through.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what's the hopes and dreams going forward? Talk about a little bit about what the format is, and what you're hoping for the ministry going forward.
I'm going to cut you off because I don't want to talk about hopes and dreams. Logistically speaking, that's where I get
It's okay
sweaty.
to dream. Jess, we
It's
talk
okay to
about
dream.
this.
Yeah, God wants
It's
you to
okay
dream.
to dream. Come dream with him. He invites us in.
Logistically,
In our relationship, I do enough dreaming for the both of us. I promise.
very practical.
Yes.
Yeah. So, practically speaking, in the spring, we'll continue to offer a captivating core, which is that entry level retreat for
Mhm.
anyone to come.
Which follows the agenda of Captivating Core. It's videos from
Yes.
Stacey Eldridge,
Yep.
and John Eldridge
Mm-hmm.
teaches 1 or
Yes.
2
Yeah.
sessions,
Yes.
and you guys have live response. You guys actually
Mm-hmm.
get up and respond. So
Yeah, very
exactly,
much
I
like
actually
base
helped
camp.
them.
Mhm.
I helped them with the
Yes.
videos,
Thank
and
God.
it's literally like a mirror image of
Hmm.
Basecamp, except for women.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We have food, we have fun, we have great sessions. Our leadership team will come up and share stories, which just feels connecting in the room when you can hear from a
Mhm.
person,
Yeah.
and we're available to people to have conversations throughout the weekend, and lots of quiet time and beauty. The places that we get to go are stunning. And prayed over, and it's a great experience. You
Mhm.
come Thursday evening, check in, get all kinds of free stuff, and get spoiled a little bit, and then check out on Sunday afternoon and go home feeling free.
hmm.
And then in the fall, we offer the advanced retreat. And as far as we can tell today, that'll be
Mhm.
the rhythm that we have. Who knows
Yes.
what God might do, but those are our plans.
So what's the name of the entry level?
So the ministry is Sacred Journey, and then
Yeah.
everything we do underneath that is honoring to John and Stacy. So it's
Mhm.
Captivating Core and Captivating Advanced.
Okay.
Yes.
Hopes and dreams.
Hopes and dreams.
That's your department.
I think I'm learning that it's okay. It's safe to dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I love that. But dreams, hopes and dreams, I hope that we can continue to invite the younger women alongside to experience that, to know, to have more tools, to be able to have a better understanding
Mhm.
of be rooted in their identity, be grounded in God's love and His presence in their life,
Yeah.
even younger than maybe we were able to experience that.
Yeah.
My hopes and dreams might look a little different than yours, maybe. I don't
This
know.
is a safe space, Meg.
But my hopes and dreams, it's a safe space. I want every single woman. We pray before camp, whoever is supposed to be there will be there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The number doesn't matter. It's the person, it's the woman that is supposed to be there. And so
Yeah.
we pray before every camp that God will lead. But my hopes and dreams are that every single woman that comes will not leave untouched,
Mm.
that they will feel that unconditional love
Yeah.
of God, and that He sees them and that He knows them, and that everyone is unique and special and has a calling. And so those are my hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
So yours might look a little different.
Yeah. Well, and I think just speaking to how we're growing, we are a baby ministry. This thing's been going
Yes.
for 2 years, and we luckily are blessed to have the format, the content, and so we're not starting from scratch, which does give us space to dream a little
does.
bit.
Mhm.
And I think consistency is really important to me because I want people to know when they can come. I want people to be able to plan and look forward and get excited about it, invite their friends. Like that is probably what I've seen already is that
Yeah.
it's just a snowball. They keep coming back and they bring more people with them.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so, as a part of that, we have a couple of ladies that have been a few times and they want to be a part of it. They want
They
to
do.
participate, but they want to play a part. They want to come and serve our team and serve the women that are coming. And so, we are opening up volunteer roles for our core retreat. And just coming out of the advance too, like people find a way to get involved. Like whether you
Yes.
want them
Mhm.
to or not, they're going to pray for you. They're going to show up and offer to help. And so we are opening up spaces for women to come and be a part of setting up
Yes.
and creating the environment of the retreat and then still get to enjoy all the content throughout the weekend. So that's new for us. And yeah, the consistency of having a core and an advanced is brand new.
Mhm.
And that's something we'll continue. And it has always been a small group. It's always been around 30 or 40 people. And that's what I think we're going to do right now. But God may surprise me. And like Meg said, if God prompts 70 people to show up for the next core, great, let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah. I think we're just responding to whatever his plan
Yes.
is.
And that's what's beautiful timing about this, because if you think like you guys have been doing this for several years now, and this is the first time we're having you guys on the podcast to talk about it. We've actually, I think, kind of the only platform that True North has really promoted it has been at our Ascent. At the end of that weekend, we've been telling the men, hey, there is an experience available like this for women. It's Sacred Journey. And so But now it just feels like the perfect time to, you know, promote you guys, invite you guys into this platform. And because this March is the first time that it's it's not necessarily been invite only so far, but kind of like y'all have had to be
It's
very
been,
careful
word of
Yes.
mouth.
about how you open it up.
Yeah.
But now it's more, it is
It's
open.
open.
You have the ability to host a larger number of people. In March, you guys will be at Sawyer Lake, which we'll be going to this week and checking it out. And that is March. I've already forgotten the date.
27th.
27th. Okay.
She's
So
on
the
it.
week, that weekend of March 27th.
Mhm.
And Sawyer Lake is in Minco,
Mhm.
which is from where we live in Mustang. It's about 45 minutes straight down Highway 152. So it's very close to the metro. And excited to see you guys grow into that space.
Yeah, we do have capacity to hold more people. And between our team and volunteer team that's growing, like there's still going to be a great connection between everyone who comes and the people that are there to serve.
Yes.
How would people and so to go to the advanced, you have to have attended a captivating experience before.
Yeah, somewhere. And it doesn't have to have been with us, but
Yeah.
if you've been through captivating content through Wild at Heart, or if you've been to another retreat that's happening and they're showing that content in any form or fashion, you have to have understood the language and been through that first experience. And then anyone after that point is invited to the advanced. But
And so if anybody has questions like, well, I went to this thing, does that count? How can they reach you guys and ask you those questions?
yeah, we have a website now.
We do.
We're
Oh
official.
my gosh.
Yes.
I know.
Big time.
It's not
Big
flashy,
time.
but it's efficient. It gets the job done.
It is.
But yeah, you can see all of the retreat information on the website.
Mhm.
There's a contact place there. There's a place to donate if people want to sponsor someone to come to retreat, like photos from previous retreats, an explanation of who we are, where we've been, where we're going, who Wild at Heart is.
Yeah.
So anything they need to have peace of mind of what they're stepping into, and then also just clarity of how to get from where they are to get
So
signed up.
What is the website?
Sacred Journey. We'll put it in the description of this podcast.
I think this would be an excellent moment, Taylor, for you to have a cool graphic come up.
Can you
Here-
just
yeah,
line
just
it
do
up
it.
like
Do it.
right here?
There you go. Sacred Journey.
And
Boom.
here you go.
Man, it's going to
I
be
endorse
flooded.
this message.
Yeah. The two things, like this announcement is really going to flood it. But then I think, Meg really pointed out something beautiful earlier, basically describing to the men that with the women that come here, like God's going to fix them. And so all you men are like chomping at the bit, like y'all might
You're
be,
not wrong.
y'all might be packed out at this next camp. And
Yes.
so I'm excited for you guys.
Yeah.
Me too.
Um,
And on a more serious note about God fixing the women.
I was serious.
Well, I know you're serious, but I would like to say that it was a lot due to Ryan attending camp
Mhm.
and God showing up for him and what he did in his life, and then hearing stories of other men's lives. That it kind of sparks a desire. Jess knows what I'm talking about. You see your husband come home changed, like a different man altogether. And you're like, I want that. I want to I want to go to camp.
Yeah.
Of course it's a dude's camp, but can't go. So this just gives the women an opportunity
Mhm.
of a glimpse of what the men have experienced. And if they can learn some of the same things, see what God is teaching them, and then it just gives the wife something more to relate to the husband. They have a deeper understanding. And it, I don't know, I've seen, I just seen it made a huge impact in our lives, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah.
Being
I mean,
able
Little
to,
bit.
you to go to camp
Just
and us to go to camp.
I mean,
like, just
should
a
we go
tiny
into
bit.
all that?
We should.
We're-
How much longer,
We're
Taylor?
too
We got
far into this podcast
3
for
more
all
hours.
that.
But you're
But-
right. Like having
yeah.
a shared language
A
I mean,
shared experience.
definitely makes it easier to communicate.
It's,
Well,
yes.
there's huge value. Like we've seen a lot of guys, they'll go to camp, let's say January, and then if their lady goes to the Corps in March, like that's a very close like proximity,
Mhm.
right? And they learn all the same language. They have a lot of commonality there, and it's huge.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, obviously, just having the experience by itself is great.
Yeah.
Even if it's far apart from each other. But we've heard a lot of testimonies of guys that would go one month and the wife goes, or they go, within proximity of each other, they're just kind of on the same page.
Yeah, it kind
about
of
so
resets the
much.
culture of the relationship,
Absolutely.
of
Yeah.
how, like, you kind of get on the same page of how you're living your life, like
Yeah.
Mhm.
what you believe, how you're functioning day to day, how to support each other, how to talk through those things. And even if you're not married, like, this is obviously a powerful experience for every person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, I didn't prepare you guys for this question, but one of the things we hear from a lot of husbands, and I know you guys hear it from a lot of women, is so let's say this in a sense like most of our audience is going to be male listeners. And so as a husband, maybe you have a daughter, maybe it's your wife, and this whole thing is speaking to you like I'd love for my wife to be a part of this. But they say, I don't like being around women, around groups of women.
This is why you didn't tell me you were going to ask the
Oh
question.
no, it just came to me. But like it is such a real thing. So many men come to us
Oh, yeah.
whenever we're like, "Oh, has your wife been
Yeah.
to the women's retreat?" And they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, my wife doesn't like being around women."
Yeah.
What would speaking to the man? What would you say to them of a
Mhm.
way to shepherd and lead their wives?
I first want to validate that feeling. I
Mhm.
am the poster child for the girls like, I don't even like women. Why would I ever want to go to a women's retreat and spend a whole weekend with
Mhm.
them? I didn't want to deal with my own stuff. I definitely didn't want to be around other women who are like crying and doing a whole thing, and everything about it turned me off. But obviously, God has shown me the reasons that I felt that way, and it's changed things in me, that it's changed the way I view other people. But I would say if that's not something that she's comfortable with or is normal for her, the experience is with God. You're going to go and sit in your chair and have your experience, have your quiet time with God. And so if the bare minimum is to just show up and do your own thing, you don't have to speak to a person. You're like, we give firm instructions of when you're having quiet time, we're not talking to each other. There is a vow of silence. You're not here to counsel someone. If someone's crying, let her cry. You want to go sit out in the wilderness by yourself and walk a quarter mile just to be alone. There is full space for you to just be alone.
Yeah.
And just trust that whatever God sees you're ready to work on, He's going to walk you through. There's no pressure to fix anything or be forced to be around women. And, this isn't one of those situations where it's like we're all in a bunkhouse together and it's like a sorority. Like, you don't have to build relationships with people. You can go and just experience God. And the direction I was given the first time I went to a retreat like this was, don't wear makeup, wear sweatpants, put your hat on. You don't exist. You don't have
Yeah.
to talk to anybody. And that is what I needed. I needed permission to just go and feel kind of selfish and do something for me and isolate. And did I make friends? Absolutely. I connected with people right off the bat, but I didn't want that. But God did soften my heart in the process. So,
Yeah.
For me, it was a little different, but I knew like I didn't want to step away from the house or the kids or, leave Ryan. What if they needed me? What if something happened? What if,
like, peace out, losers.
I'm like,
Hold on, let's save this for another podcast.
okay, well, listen. Listen.
I kept them alive.
It was fine. It
Yeah.
was fine. And so, but what I needed to see is that God would take care of everything there, that I could step away and have that freedom to do that. And so for me, I thought of every excuse why not to step away for the weekend. And actually, I encouraged a friend this week. I said, sign up. I said, your house, it will be the same when you get
Yeah.
back. Maybe not,
Maybe
but
not.
most definitely everybody will be so excited to see you.
Mhm.
But I said, you need this for you.
Mhm.
There'll probably be
So-
claw marks on the bathroom door from the kids trying.
Yeah.
Dad's locked
do.
himself in the
Yes.
bathroom, and the kids are trying to get
Yes.
in. But
And then you're like,
Yeah.
finally, you understand what my
Yeah.
life is like on the
Yeah.
daily.
you just gotta bust open a bag of Doritos, lay it out on the kitchen floor.
But everybody is
They'll-
so
they'll be
grateful
all right.
when you get back.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
God will tell you when the time is right, and
Yes.
He'll care for your people. Like, you're gonna be fine.
Yes.
Everyone's gonna be fine.
He will take care of
Yeah.
it.
And
So-
if you don't know, you don't know. You're
don't
not on your
know.
phone while you're gone, and
That's
so the
right.
mess can wait. And so
Mhm.
you do truly get peace of mind. And when you come back, God's with you. You know how to talk to Him now, right? So it's fine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So crucial. So crucial. We have to battle all these things with men and women of why they need retreat.
Yeah.
We need it.
The
It's
different reasons
oh
and
my gosh.
excuses.
You
Yeah.
have to have at least once a year. Like it's not about this mountaintop moment for the rest of your life. It's about
Right.
consistently creating space at least once a year to get away from your family, get away from your spouse. Like,
Mhm.
obviously, we are big advocates for healthy marriages, but a healthy marriage can be even more healthy whenever you guys can get apart and go have alone time with God. So, man, men, women, do this. This is
Yeah.
so important. We are obviously at True North extremely passionate about this message and this style of restoration and meeting with God. So, encourage all of you to do that. Jess, Meg, I'm so proud of you guys. Jess, you've taken a lot of hard steps in this. You've yeah,
It's worth it.
yeah. And we keep on having to prepare for all these things, like in the 24th hour right before camp, because our lives are so busy,
Yeah.
and we're scrambling the week of camp to get you guys all the way ready. But it's an absolute honor to partner with you and hold y'all's hand through this experience, because we believe so deeply in what's happening. And Meg, so proud of you stepping into doing a lot of things that are big risk and scary for you, right? And
Yes.
I mean, you've joined our team, a men's ministry that you've
Yes.
just gladly stepped into and taken on the weight of a lot of really hard things, and you've done so well, and I'm so
thank
proud
you.
of you for that. And it's been an honor having you on the team.
Thank you.
Can't wait to continue doing ministry with you. And so, men, whenever you reach out to True North, you're probably not going to get much of a response from me or Ryan, but Meg will be right on top
I
of
will
it.
be right on it.
And if she's not, now you know who to blame. This is her.
Same with Sacred Journey. If you reach
Well,
out,
Yeah.
it's probably
Okay.
going to be Meg.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy to
Yeah.
reach
She
back
just
out.
does everything. Does everything. So, yeah. Check the show notes for their website. Look through that. Consider going. Prayerfully consider going, because it'll be a big thing. But thank you guys for joining us today. It is an honor to honor you guys.